סיפורים מאמריקה, וזה נושא שהקלטנו אותו אחר הצהריים כדי להכין כותרות תרגום. ובכן, סיפורים מאמריקה הוא סרט האמור להיראות והנראה אותנטי. ובכל זאת הוא רצף של זיכרונות בדויים. הדמויות האותנטיות העומדות מול מצלמה גם הן אינן אותנטיות, כולם שחקנים. המכנה המשותף לזיכרונות ולאפיזודות הקומיות הקצרות המפרידות ביניהם הוא ניסיון לגשר על מסך השכחה. כל הדמויות הן של מהגרים לארצות הברית, החל בראשית המאה, כלומר על פני תקופה של כ-50 שנה. ויוצרת הסרט שנטל אקרמן היא האורחת האחרונה שלנו הערב, וסיפורים מאמריקה יוקרן בארץ החל במחר. Good evening.
Good evening.
I wonder first of all if your own personal memories are included in the film.
You know, there are things that I know who are included in a very oblique way, not really directly, because in fact, if I needed to make that film, it's because I had a lack of memory, a lack of transmission, you know.
When you talk about lack of memory, which in fact is the essence of this film, what exactly do you mean?
I mean that, you know, the people from my generation, I'm born in 1950 in Brussels. My mother was in the camps. My father, you know, had lots of problems during the war. So the whole thing was completely surrounded by silence. Nothing was said about. It's like it's like my mother was born after the war. Nothing happened before, you know. It's like a big hole.
In fact, you mean not your own memories, but the memories of the former generation.
And what they went through, you
Yes.
know. It's like you have no ground at the end.
Yes, and did this affect your life, you think?
It affected my life very badly and very deeply, you know. I cannot give you many details, but I think that it became a kind of obsession in some extent, you know. Let's say when I was a child, my mother never said anything about the camps. Sometimes I heard the word lager, you know, when she was speaking to her aunt who went with her and things like that. And I had constantly dreams about it. Dreams about the camps that I didn't know anything about it, you know. And they were false in some extent, and some extent true.
You know, in recent years in Israel, there has been a number of books and plays, perhaps, based on this same motive of the disappearance of a whole period from the framework of the life of the next generation. Mm-hmm. But your film doesn't deal with the Holocaust as such, does it?
No, it deals more, it's a kind of imaginary memories film. It's like, you know, people living from one country to another, what you have lost, what you will gain. Most of the time they lost their family or they were separate and they have to go in another culture and they have to live their own culture. You know, it's like, let's say the Yiddishkeit has almost disappeared completely. You know, what kind of life they were living.
You say Yiddishkeit, and it is a film about Jews, but is the message solely Jewish?
Well, I think, let's say, for the Vietnamese people who had to leave, to run away from their country, they probably had to go through the same kind of things, you know. The specific things is the way it's a mixture with monologue in the movie and jokes and how the humor is used among the Jews, which is very specific and very particular.
About the humor in the film we'll talk in a minute, but I would like now, if possible, to show an excerpt from the film which in fact is a unit in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a complete story of one of the participants. Mm-hmm. So let's watch this episode with a young girl.
Mm-hmm. Born in a little village in Poland, and I lived there very happily until the age of 13. My parents did everything to give me a good education. Then a pogrom broke out, and they were the first victims of the bloodbath. They burned our houses, destroyed the synagogue, spared no one, and no one is left for me. But that was not enough for these murderers. When they found me, I was the last living person in the village they burned to the ground. I begged them to kill me, but they did not. Instead, they stripped me of my honor and left me there to suffer and cry. I lost my memory. I do not remember anything very well, only that smell of burning. and me lying somewhere in the corner of that village, silent and in ruins. Then some people from the neighboring village came and they took me with them. They took care of me, but they could never heal me. Then my family from America sent for me, but I feel like a stranger here, neither dead nor alive, and they have stopped caring about me. Here I feel lonely as a stone. A few months ago I met a man, a nice, sensitive man. I loved him right away, and he loved me too. But how can I, a dishonored woman, marry him? Now he has asked me to marry him. And I asked for a little time before I give him an answer. I even tried to discourage him, but he does not want to hear of it. He urges me every day to give him an answer, and his heart is heavy because of my silence. When he comes, I say nothing. And when he leaves, I burn with desire to have him come back. I want to tell him everything. This secret leaves me restless. It troubles me night and day. I do not want to hide anything from him. If only he were to find out everything and then make his own choice. One day, I will find the strength to tell him. I hope it will not be too late.
Well, tell me something about the actors in this film. In what way did you involve them to the extent that they can depict really real characters in a film which is not really real?
Well, most of the actors are Jews, first of all. When I start to audition them and I gave them something to read, they say, well, and my grandmother, and you know, everybody has their own story to tell. So, you know, I had my script and I didn't want to make a documentary, but they were really involved. In fact, they felt it was the right time to do it too, you know. And, you know, like the girl is Esther Balint. She came in America from Hungary. So, you know, she ran away from Hungary. So she feels
You're talking about the actress.
That's the actor, is Esther Balint. She was in Strand Jordan Paradise. Well, you will see it in another part of the film. It's Judith Malina. She ran away from Germany, you know, before the war. So those people were really involved. They did, even if it was not their story, it was the story that they know really well.
Another thing that is interesting, I mean, whoever saw just this excerpt should perhaps know that the background returns again and again. And this is a very strange background. It's there and it's not.
It's like a no man's land.
Exactly.
You know, it's like in some extent if you are the Jews in the desert, you know, before entering somewhere.
But what was the real location?
It was on the other side of the Williamsburg Bridge in Brooklyn, in a neighborhood where in one side they were the Hasidic Hungarian Jews, and on the other side of the place were the Puerto Rican people. But it was a big garbage place, in fact.
And you chose it because it is not clear and it's not specific?
I choose because you have the feeling that it's on the border of something. It's not yet the city. It's not yet the place where you want to go. And also, it's a free place in some extent. You have a feeling that it's the end of the world there, you know?
Now, you mentioned earlier on the comic bits in the film. Where did you choose them from?
Well, lots of them I knew. Some of them I read, you know, in books. Some of them people were telling me, you know.
Why did you think you needed them?
Well, I needed it because it's the way I think the Jews are thinking. Let's say something dreadful happened to you, you know. You immediately make a joke about it in order to survive, to make it bearable, to make what happened to you bearable, you know. Especially, you know, in those times. Because I think that the things has changed a bit with Israel. You know, I think it's, first of all, after the war, the things were not so dreadful, you know, in Europe. And the use of the joke is more repetition than inventing new jokes. Those jokes were really invented because of dreadful things.
As it's called professionally, a comic relief.
Comic relief. Yeah.
So let's wrap this interview up with seeing two humorous episodes from the film now, if possible.
What's bothering you? Nothing. Nothing. Don't be so discreet. Tell me. What's bothering you? Okay, I'm going to tell you. For days and days I've been wondering, what's the difference between a psychotic and a neurotic? The difference between a psychotic and a neurotic. Well, I'm going to tell you. Really? Yes. Well, a psychotic, he thinks that 2 and 2 make 5. A neurotic, he knows that 2 and 2 make 4, but he can't stand it. But me, I think 2 and 2 make 5, and I still can't stand it.
Our children are ashamed of us because we speak Yiddish. They all went to the university, even our daughter, and we're proud of them. They've become doctors and professors. Who could ask for more? But we have brought up strangers in this world. My daughter, my only daughter, has dyed her hair strawberry blonde. My heart aches. Am I wrong to want to speak Yiddish? Should I, too, dye my hair blonde to please my children?
Well, I think I should just mention the fact that you have produced until now some 9 films.
I have produced now about 25 films, but let's say around 9 feature. Yes.
Yeah. So what's in the future? What's in store?
The next film is going to be called Night and Day. I'm going to shoot it in the summer in Paris, and it's a love story.
It's a love story.
It's just a love story.
Well, I wish you success. שנטל, אקרמן, thank you very much.
Thank you.
וכאן אנחנו מגיעים לסיומה של התוכנית הערב. נתראה שוב בעוד שבועיים, בשבוע שאחרי יום העצמאות. לילה טוב ולהתראות.